The extraterrestrial races in the group called the Short Greys include the ubiquitous Greys from the star system Zeta Reticulum and the Orion constellation, who are described in most of the abduction research and who figure prominently in reports of UFO crashes. Robert Dean included the Greys as one extraterrestrial described in NATO's assessment. Colonel Philip Corso, who served in the Eisenhower administration and later headed the Foreign Technology Desk at the U.S. Army's Research and Development Department, claims to have witnessed the body of a dead Grey retrieved from Roswell in 1947. What he saw fit the suggesting a more ethical approach to the challenges confronting humanity as it prepares for the truth about the extraterrestrial presence and challenges posed by advanced extraterrestrial technology. It is this latter group which may prove to be the key in solving systemic global problems caused by the first group and the shadow government. In this report, I will first describe the group of extraterrestrials that are part of a military-industrial extraterrestrial complex that, while mainly associated with the US, is global in scope. I will then describe the second group of extraterrestrials who have declined to be associated with the military-industrial extraterrestrial complex. Distinguishing between extraterrestrial groups in this way helps bring to prominence the complex ethical, legal, political dimensions in understanding how different extraterrestrial races choose to cooperate or not with the military-industrial extraterrestrial complex. For example, is a race of extraterrestrials unfriendly if it chooses to become part of a military-industrial extraterrestrial complex, thereby sharing technology with national security agencies in what may be described as mutually beneficial projects that lead to secrecy, human rights violations and damage the global environment as a result of policies by the shadow government? Likewise, is a race of extraterrestrials friendly when it refuses to be co-opted into a military-industrial extraterrestrial complex, thereby choosing to play a mainly observer role as a majority of the human race is exploited by human elites and extraterrestrials associated with the military-industrial extraterrestrial complex? While a prima facie argument can be made to answer yes to both questions, this should not disguise the deeper ethical, legal, political issues that emerge with the existence of a military-industrial extraterrestrial complex in dealing with such questions. Understanding the motivations and activities of the most significant extraterrestrial races will help greatly in answering the above questions, and will also help private individuals respond adequately to the dilemma over which extraterrestrial races contribute to global problems confronting humanity, and which extraterrestrial races can be worked with for the evolution and emancipation of humanity. Classic description of a 4-foot-tall extraterrestrial with a large head, large black almond-shaped eyes, thin torso and spindly arms and legs. A classic description is by Travis Walton, who had an abduction experience with the Greys. They were very short, shorter than 5 feet, and they had very large bald heads, no hair. Their heads were domed, very large. They looked like fetuses. They had no eyebrows, no eyelashes. They had very large eyes, enormous eyes, almost all brown, without much white in them. The creepiest thing about them were those eyes. Oh, man, those eyes, they just stared through me. Prominent UFO abduction researchers such as Dr. David Jacobs, Bud Hopkins and the late Dr. Carla Turner have provided detailed case studies of the abusive aspects of UFO abductions. These researchers found disturbing evidence of abusive treatment of individuals taken into UFO craft, of women being involuntarily subjected to a genetic program aimed at producing human extraterrestrial hybrids, and of adult hybrids performing humiliating sexual activities on female abductees. Many researchers agree that the Greys are deeply involved in developing a hybrid human-Grey race that would be a suitable vehicle for the next step in human evolution. Researchers such as Jacobs believe this is a cause for alarm and poses a direct threat to human sovereignty. According to Col Corso, the Greys were involved in agreements with the Eisenhower administration that military officials saw as a form of negotiated surrender, where the Greys gained permission for abducting civilians and expanding their biological program. Clifford Stone distinguishes between good and bad extraterrestrials, and refers to the Greys as part of the bad guys committing egregious abductions, and that the US government is unsure how to disclose this to the general public. The good guys, ETs, are, well, I like to refer to them as being nomadic. What you're talking about the non-intervention with other intelligent life forms is a universal law. The nomadics go along with that. The Greys violated the universal law. I think there is the effort for the good guys to make contact with the people within our government, but I think now what is happening is that the US government learned in 1983 or thereabout that they are not dealing with the good guys, but really don't know what to do about it. The Greys are very active in human abductions, genetic experiments, monitoring humans through implants, mind control/programming, cloning and creation of hybrid humans. These contribute to systemic global problems such as humans traumatized by abduction experiences, genetically modified humans, implants for monitoring humans, and an overly passive population due to hypnotic mind control/programming. Tall Greys/Whites. The second prominent race in this group of extraterrestrials are the Tall Greys, described by Robert Dean as a very large group. I say large, they were 6 to 8, maybe sometimes 9 feet tall, and they were humanoid, but they were very pale, very white, didn't have any hair on their bodies at all. Tall Greys are described to originate from the Orion constellation, and according to Dr. Arthur Horn, play an overseeing role vis-a-vis Short Greys. The Short Greys are overseen within their own ranks by the taller 7 to 8 foot tall Greys. These Greys are the ones that actually carry out diplomatic missions, such as secretly negotiating treaties with heads of human governments. As mentioned, the Greys in general, and the small 3 to 5 foot Greys in particular, have been likened to mercenaries. Support for the diplomatic role played by the Tall Greys comes from William Cooper, former Navy intelligence advisor, who claims he saw classified documents where the Tall Greys did negotiate agreements with the Eisenhower administration in meetings beginning in 1954. Later in 1954, the race of large-nosed gray aliens which had been orbiting the Earth landed at Holloman Air Force Base. A basic agreement was reached. This race identified themselves as originating from a planet around a red star in the constellation of Orion, which we called Betelgeuse. They stated that their planet was dying and that at some unknown future time they would no longer be able to survive there. The meeting at Holloman Air Force Base in New Mexico has reportedly been the site of subsequent extraterrestrial meetings with Tall Greys. In 1972-73, for example, the producers Robert Emenegger and Alan Sandler had allegedly been offered and witnessed actual Air Force film footage of a meeting involving Tall Greys that occurred at Holloman Air Force Base in 1971. It can be inferred that this Tall Grey race is a hybrid race that represents a fusion of human-looking extraterrestrials and short gray biological material. When it comes to the abduction phenomenon, Dr. David Jacobs concludes from an exhaustive analysis of 60 case studies in Secret Life that the Tall Greys play an overseeing role in these. The Tall Greys were found to be present in many abductions that Jacobs examined through hypnotic regression of abductees, and were in command of the Short Greys who performed most of the abductions. Recently, a former U.S. Air Force serviceman published his memoirs where he disclosed extensive interactions with a variety of Tall Greys which he called Tall Whites due to their very white chalky skin and white hair. Hall was stationed at Nellis Air Force Base from 1965-67, where his duty was to use weather balloons for the Air Force from the Indian Springs location on the base. He describes his interactions with Tall Whites beginning in 1965 and how he and other servicemen coped with their disturbing presence. Hall described a catalog of incidents where the Tall Whites terrorized other military servicemen who didn't understand them, surprised them, or threatened them in some way. Hall, for example, describes one Tall White who wanted to kill a military serviceman who accidentally hit her child with a stone and broke her arm. The incident led to the Tall White threatening the serviceman with death if he didn't leave immediately and promised to never return. Other servicemen had similar negative encounters with the Tall Whites where their lives were threatened if they frightened Tall White children or didn't follow orders to the letter. Significantly, these dire consequences were given approval by the Pentagon, which monitored the Tall Whites' interactions with Hall and other military servicemen. Only Hall was spared this kind of intimidating treatment since he had the intelligence and courage to interact with the Tall Whites in a friendly way. Furthermore, he had apparently saved the life of a Tall White child, and this led to him being befriended by the Tall Whites and incorporated him into a project to study human-Tall White interaction. This is where the Tall Whites display more positive qualities such as friendship and superior technical knowledge in their interactions with Hall. Significantly, the Tall Whites began to be seen in the Mojave Desert area in 1954, indicating that they were associated with the agreements reached between the Tall Greys and the Eisenhower administration in 1954. Hall further describes regularly seeing them in the presence of Air Force generals and other senior officials who recognize the ambassadorial status of the Tall White leader. The Tall Greys and/or Tall Whites represent a working model of how human and gray biological material can be combined, and therefore play a lead role in assisting the Short Greys in interacting with humanity to develop a suitable hybrid species. The Tall Greys/Whites intimidate humans in a variety of reported interactions, and behave in an almost clinical manner reminiscent of a medical doctor conducting an experiment. The Tall Greys/Whites are most involved in genetic experiments, creating a hybrid human gray race, mind control, and diplomatic agreements with the shadow government. Global problems that are influenced by the Tall Greys/Whites include genetically modified humans, implants for monitoring humans, an overly passive population due to hypnotic mind control, influence over elite decision makers, the infiltration of national security agencies, and human rights abuses of civilians and military personnel. Reptilians, another prominent extraterrestrial race in this group, is described by Dean as humanoids with reptilian characteristics that are 6 to 8 feet tall. Reptilian extraterrestrial races have been described to be both native to Earth, and also from other star systems. R. A. Boulay, has extensively analyzed a variety of historic sources and argued that there is sufficient evidence to support the conclusion that an ancient extraterrestrial race of reptilians inhabited the Earth and played a role in the creation of humanity. According to Thomas Costello, a former security official at Dulce, a highly classified underground facility involving a number of extraterrestrial races cooperating with a number of U.S. national security agencies and corporations, reptilians indigenous to Earth work side by side with humans and other extraterrestrial races. Some reptoids, reptilians, are native to this planet. The ruling caste of aliens are reptilian. They were an ancient race on Earth, living underground. Reptoids rightly consider themselves native Terrans. Perhaps they are the ones we call the fallen angels, maybe not. Either way, we are considered the squatters on Earth. Since I was the senior security technician at that base, Dulce, I had to communicate with them on a daily basis. If there were any problems that involved security or video cameras, I was the one they called. It was the reptilian working caste that usually did the physical labor in the lower levels at Dulce. According to Costello, the lower levels of Dulce involved extensive human rights abuses on captive civilians by joint extraterrestrial human project leaders. William Hamilton, a well-respected UFO researcher, researched both the Dulce base facility and Thomas Costello's claims and credibility, and found them to be highly plausible. It may be unpalatable to digest or believe Thomas' story. In fact, it seems like part of a living nightmare. There is evidence that something strange does go on at Dulce. Does Thomas have the answer? There may be a terrible truth hidden behind the continuing phenomena of UFO sightings, abductions, and animal mutilations. Our government intelligence agencies have had an ongoing watchful eye on all UFO activities for many decades now. This extraordinary phenomenon must have an extraordinary explanation. We may be only one outpost in a vast interstellar empire. In addition to Hamilton's conclusion about Costello's claims and credibility, I have written an extensive report of the Dulce base and found the evidence is very consistent with Costello's claims concerning human rights violations involving various extraterrestrials, U.S. national security agencies, and corporations. Linda Moulton Howe, an investigative journalist and UFO researcher, interviewed a contactee/abductee by the name of Jim Sparks who claims to have met with a number of reptilians indigenous to Earth. According to Sparks, indigenous Earth-based reptilians have their own unique culture and have interacted with humanity for millennia, and both assisted humanity and used it as a resource. Sparks was told by the reptilians that they have reached a number of secret agreements with national governments. Sparks's claims are very consistent with the experience of another contactee, Al-Haadi, who claims to have met with a female reptilian, Lacerta, and interviewed her on a number of occasions and distributed the interviews as the Lacerta files. According to Lacerta, reptilians who have evolved on Earth are distinct to off-world reptilians who periodically visit the Earth. While there is some debate over the credibility of Al-Haadi, the testimony is coherent and consistent with Sparks and other research on the reptilian species, and worth considering to better understand reptilian activities. According to Lacerta, the reptilians' disposition towards humanity is cautious since they view humans as a primitive species that is the property of other extraterrestrial races that seeded the planet. The Earth-based reptilians, according to Sparks, harvest humans in a way that does not challenge the human presence on the planet. This suggests that the reptilians are following agreements imposed upon them by more powerful off-world extraterrestrial races mentioned by Lacerta. In sum, according to the whistleblower and contactee testimonies discussed thus far, it can be concluded that the indigenous Earth-based reptilians are involved in activities such as manipulating human elites and financial institutions, influencing religious belief systems, militarism, and altering the history of human civilization. The systemic global problems the indigenous reptilians contribute to include covert human rights abuses, elite corruption and domination, control the media and corporations, divisive religious dogma, historical amnesia, and a culture of violence. Draconians, the most controversial whistleblower contactee, reports concern an off-world master reptilian race described as the Draco reptilians who are claimed to originate from the Alpha Draconis star system, which is 215 light-years distant and was formerly the Pole Star. According to Alex Collier, the Draconians or Dracos have two main castes, the first of which is a warrior caste that are in the 7 to 8 foot range, who are apparently feared throughout the galaxy for their fighting abilities. The second caste are a royal line of Draco reptilians that he describes as Sukars, which, because of their alleged size, psychic ability and alleged wings, might be confused as the proverbial dragon if Collier is correct. The Draconians are a very large reptilian race, otherwise known as the Dracs. There is royal line of the reptilian race called the Chakar. They range from 14 to 22 feet tall and can weigh up to 1,800 pounds. They do have winged appendages and they are awesome beings. They're extremely clairvoyant and extremely clever, and they can also be extremely sinister. Collier claims that according to the Draconian worldview, they were the first intelligent species in the galaxy and seeded many worlds with their biological offspring. The Draco-Reptilians therefore see themselves as the natural rulers of reptilian-controlled worlds such as Earth, and view humans as an inferior species. The Draconians are interested in harvesting the Earth's resources while ensuring that these resources are efficiently exploited. There appears to be a strict hierarchy involving the Draco-Reptilians and other extraterrestrial races so far described in this group. According to Thomas Costello, reptilians from Alpha Draconis, the Dracos, are in command of the Earth-based reptilians. Earth-based reptilians are in turn in command of the tall greys, who are in command of the short greys. Interestingly, Costello also describes the Draconian ruling caste as Sukars, who are winged and therefore could be easily confused as dragons. Jefferson Souza, a Brazilian UFO researcher, confirms the existence of a hierarchy involving the greys and a master reptilian race. All of the extraterrestrial races described above appear to have a number of interlocking agreements between them that have a common interface in the agreements between U.S. national security agencies and the greys. The Draconians form the hidden apex of the military-industrial extraterrestrial complex, MIEC, that controls information and technology related to the extraterrestrial presence. The Draconians appear to be very active in controlling human elites, institutions and financial systems, promoting militarism, creating a climate of scarcity, struggle and insecurity, harvesting humans and manipulating greys and other reptilian races. Draconian activities contribute to global problems such as concentrated wealth, corrupt elites and institutions, ethnic/religious violence, human rights abuses, a culture of violence and terrorism, and the drug trade and organized crime. In addition to the above extraterrestrials, there are a number of human-looking extraterrestrials from Sirius B, which is part of a binary star system. Alex Collier describes extraterrestrials from Sirius B as follows: the cultures around Sirius B have a very controlling vibration. Some of the humans are red, beige and black-skinned. The planets around Sirius B are very arid and generally occupied by reptilian and aquatic-type beings. The society is more obsessed with political thought patterns instead of spiritual attributes. Amazingly, an African tribe called the Dogon had an intricate understanding of this elliptical orbit of Sirius B around the main star, Sirius A. This knowledge was apparently given to their ancestors by advanced extraterrestrials from the Sirius star system. The Dogon described the Sirians as amphibians from a planet around Sirius B, which is consistent with Collier's claim that one of the planets around Sirius B is generally occupied by reptilian and aquatic-type beings. Preston Nichols claims to be a whistleblower who participated in a clandestine project at Montauk that involved a number of extraterrestrial groups. An independent investigator found Nichols to be a very reliable and solid witness, and that for myself, his information checked out across the board right down the line, to the extent that it was at all possible to verify particular information. The humans from Sirius B, according Nichols, played a role in providing exotic technologies such as time/interdimensional travel to clandestine government agencies involved in both the Philadelphia experiment and Montauk project. Alex Collier explains the role of this group of extraterrestrials in technology exchanges with national security agencies. Those from Sirius B have come here and really messed with our heads, and they are the ones who originally gave our government the Montauk technology. This exotic technology was provided for the purpose of encouraging national security agencies to develop offensive military capabilities vis-à-vis possible extraterrestrial threats. This technological assistance even involved biological weapons research, according to Collier, who claims the biological material that has been added to the Ebola virus was given to the government by the humanoids from Sirius B. I don't know if it was one of their viruses that they picked up somewhere or whether it is actually from them. According to Daniel Salter, another whistleblower with long military service which included a period in the National Reconnaissance Office, extraterrestrial-related issues drive human-extraterrestrial cooperation in a clandestine organization in the National Security Agency called the Advanced Contact Intelligence Organization, ACIO. According to leaked information from an alleged whistleblower on a popular website called The Wingmakers, information which Salter affirms to be accurate, ACIO is cooperating with a consortium of extraterrestrials to develop sophisticated time travel technologies for future extraterrestrial threats. According to the Wingmakers website, blank slate technology, or BST, is a form of time travel that enables the rewrite of history at what are called intervention points. Intervention points are the causal energy centers that create a major event like the breakup of the Soviet Union or the NASA space program. BST is the most advanced technology, and clearly anyone who is in possession of BST can defend themselves against any aggressor. It is, as 15, leader of the Labyrinth, was fond of saying, the freedom key. Remember that the SEO was the primary interface with extraterrestrial technologies and how to adapt them into mainstream society as well as military applications. We were exposed to extraterrestrials and knew of their agenda. Some of these extraterrestrials scared the hell out of the SEO. It is likely that this consortium of extraterrestrials includes those from Sirius B who allegedly provided some time travel/interdimensional travel technology for the Montauk Project, and assistance in researching biological weapons. The Sirians do not appear to be closely connected to the Grey or Reptilian groups that have been the main extraterrestrial groups involved in technology transfers. The Sirian interaction with the shadow government appears to have been an independent initiative designed to provide an alternative source of extraterrestrial technology. Nevertheless, Collier's description of humans from Sirians B cohabiting their worlds with reptilians suggests a deep historical experience with reptilians. This suggests that concern with the Reptilian/Grey technology exchange agreements may have been a major factor in the Sirians' efforts. In conclusion, this human extraterrestrial group from Sirius B is mainly active in technology exchange programs that have assisted the government in the acquisition of various technologies that have had military applications. This appears to be aimed at promoting military cooperation to potential extraterrestrial threats against Earth, both through subversion and external intervention. The global problems that the humanoids from Sirius B have contributed to include covert weapons research, use of exotic technologies, and abuse of civilians used in time travel experiments. Finally, there is reported to be a race of giant humanoids who have played a role in seeding the Earth with humans, and who periodically return to the Earth to determine how effectively Earth's resources have been utilized by humanity and those extraterrestrial races playing a role in managing humanity. These are described by the Sumerians as the Anunnaki from the world Nibiru in the extensive cuneiform texts translated by Zechariah Sitchin. These giant humanoids apparently form the chief founding extraterrestrial race that were the gods described in ancient mythologies and religions. According to the accounts of the Sumerians, the Anunnaki's chief god is Anu, and the pantheon of Anunnaki as described by Sitchin form key figures in the hierarchy that secretly oversee management of humanity and the planet Nibiru, which periodically returns to the vicinity of Earth. According to Alex Collier, this is how the Anunnaki or Nibiruans originated as a species. A very long time ago, colonies on Sirius B and the Orion group were having trouble with each other. In order to bring peace, there was a marriage between members of each group. The woman came from the Orion group, where the hierarchy includes a queen, the matriarchal paradigm. The male was from Sirius B. Both members were considered royalty of their respective line. When these two came together in marriage, their offspring had the genetics from both lines. Because of these genetics, the new race that was created was given the name Nibiru, which I am told by Mirani, Andromedan counselor, in the Orion tongue means divided amongst two. This is who they literally are, a cross between those from Sirius B and a race from the Orion system. They formed a new tribe which has continued to flourish for at least hundreds of thousands of years. So, they are a tribe that has become a race. It appears that the Anunnaki's mode of operation is to leave primitive species such as humanity to flourish on the planet's surface, while more advanced races such as the Reptilians form a kind of planetary management team to harvest humanity in a way that serves the long-term interest of the Anunnaki, who return periodically to assess their human experiment. It therefore appears that the Anunnaki form a kind of regulatory agent to ensure that the Earth's resources, and humanity in general, are responsibly managed. The Anunnaki have a relationship with the Earth-based reptilians based on whatever historical agreements they reached over humanity will be managed. It is also likely that the Anunnaki have some form of agreement with the Draconians over how the latter intervene in worlds where the Anunnaki have established human experiments. Finally, it is also likely that some members of the Anunnaki have remained secretly on Earth and therefore have played a role in the creation of elite human organizations to manage human affairs. These agreements and/or secret control of human elite groups indirectly make the Anunnaki a part of the military-industrial extraterrestrial complex. According to Sergeant Dean, the Anunnaki are major players in human affairs, and this is likely to become more significant as their home planet, Nibiru, returns to the vicinity of Earth. It is the apparent return of the Anunnaki that appears to be a wild card that concerns national security agencies that are unaware of how this race of extraterrestrials will impact on global humanity and the military-industrial extraterrestrial complex that has been created to manage extraterrestrial affairs. The main activities of the Anunnaki are to influence the long-term human evolution through elite groups, systems and institutions, and by influencing human consciousness. They appear to be in competition with the Draconians for control of Earth. The main global problems they contribute to include elite domination, religious fundamentalism, a patriarchal global culture, and a culture of violence.